want to cover two issues today out of Utah, which stretch the credulity and the response of the criminal justice system. This, according to one of the articles in Utah. But before I get to that, I want to talk about two items of regarding updates, which I forgot to mention the other day. So the first update is an internal affairs request for investigation that I put in about a month ago regarding the conduct of their one of their top guys in the child exploitation unit, Detective John Spata. As I bonded out of jail on July 26th, 2018, Detective Spata was the one, I talk about this in my book, who came running up to me and asked me to sign this very, or asked me to sign a warrant indicating that I received it. And the warrant was based on this particular affidavit, which I've shown before, where Detective Spata says, among other things, that they are attempting to um, break down my door and basically look for evidence in my home. And they want to do that based on what a supposed juvenile who reported Asians showed them images and videos of pornography, which really shocked me. I don't recall ever seeing this during my trial at all. I don't recall getting it. I recall getting the warrant, a copy of which was on my kitchen table when I came home to straighten everything. They were worried as I was bonding, literally right there, 10 feet from the door, bonding out of jail, just waiting for the bail bondsman to finish his work. But I had no car. I had to wait to get my car from the police department, another division, and the little game they played with my car and how they damaged it, and that took time. So they had plenty of time to come to my home. The question is why they didn't come for the preceding 4 days, and apparently they didn't come up with a good enough reason to get a warrant to do that. Of course, they found nothing in my home. They found nothing on my devices, just like they found nothing in my car. Anywhere they searched, from my person to my possessions, they found nothing because, as I said many times, I had no interest in doing anything sexual with a minor, period. That item I did not mention. I'm still waiting to hear from Internal Affairs. The second one has to do with the Mid Atlantic Innocence Project, which has expanded its operations, and the local Commonwealth attorneys are working on that. So they're working through the Innocence Project to identify cases where they may actually have innocence. Now, what's tricky about gaining a legal standing, which is called a writ of actual innocence, is you have to prove one of two things. Either a witness has to come forward and say, no, that person's innocent. I was there and I saw this, whatever happened, or some new evidence that has been discovered that was not known at the time of trial. So if you had a terrible attorney like I had, if you had a judge who didn't care about the facts, if you had a prosecutor that lied, and a police officer that was convicted of lying in similar fashion years ago, as happened in my case, and as I've explained in detail on the site and in my book, um, it doesn't matter. They don't care about that. Okay, that's why it's very, very important to win at the court level. So those two issues are in play right now as well. So I wanted to start out here to talk about Judge Kevin Christensen, who is a longtime judge in Box Elder, which is a community in Utah. Judge Christensen sadly has been arrested as part of an investigation that began around February 26th, February 28th of this year. Apparently, he went on Kick, K-I-K, I think it's called, and he propositioned someone who revealed themselves to be a 13-year-old girl, and another one 16-year-old girl. According to the article, which is according to police, what they always say is that he began the conversation, he, quote, directed it towards sex and exchanged CSAM, child sex abuse material, CSAM. Um, Very sad case. He used to meet with juvenile groups to explain the workings of the court and how they could be a part of it and how they could understand the court better. But apparently, according to this article again, and I always say, according to, because you never know how much truth is in that article. Remember, it's always good to read these things critically because you find out later details come out that were not quite what they had in the article, or when you review the facts, they're quite different. I refer to my case again with the appeal article written by journalist Stephen Yoder, where I released all the transcripts and everything to him, and he did not come to the conclusion that I was guilty. He explained about the stings. He explained a little bit about what happened to me, even though it wasn't about me. So there was a limited amount of time and space. And once you read it, of course, you know, an editor has to read it, a proofreader, et cetera. It gets cut down. And unfortunately, it was cut down from the original piece. But nevertheless, it's good publicity, which explain what the police are up to and how questionable these things are. When he contacted, that is Stephen Yoder, the Fairfax County Police initially, they gave him some talking points, and when he probed further, they refused to speak any further on the subject. So they were again trying to use the media for their own purpose instead of actually explaining to the media what happens and releasing actual transcripts so you can see everything in there. Um, so sadly, Judge Elder is on the hook, and the what the article says, which is very interesting here, is it, and I hope I will be able to read a little bit of it. It says that they were unable to determine to what extent he was a danger of the to the community, although they felt it was fairly high and they denied him bail. But they make another curious statement saying that this type of an arrest of a judge, a sitting judge, undermines the legitimacy of the court system. And I couldn't agree more. But what they never say is the planning for these stings and what the police actually do also undermines the faith in the entire legal establishment. If you have police officers who are lying, who are setting people up, who are directing the conversation, and that's the most suspicious thing that they said in the article about the judge, that police very often, increasingly, they are directing the conversations. I've read some of their conversations here on this site. I've read a number of different views from other people, from lawyers, from forensic analysts who have looked at the evidence in many of these cases, and they say it's not what the public is being led to believe. Okay, so be that as it may, we have another case also in Utah in Brigham City. This is of a police chief. I believe his last name is Randolph, and this chief of police apparently was involved in having sex with young people and soliciting them online as well. Now, what's really interesting in both of these powerful cases is to see exactly what happens. As I've shared before from the Bowling Green State Henry Wallace database, which, among other things, tracks computer crimes of police, in many of these computer crimes, excuse me, the police actually get much lighter sentences than the rest of us. They either get probation, they get a year in jail, not in prison. And very often when they get out, they're able over and over again to get jobs down the street in a different division, in federal instead of state, in local instead of state. Um, and they are able to continue on. There was an article some years ago that talked about how difficult it was in the remote areas of Alaska to find law enforcement. And so, very often, the people who will go for these jobs, and frankly, the people who are knowledgeable about the legal establishment, are people who are felons, people who've spent a lot of time in the legal and criminal justice system. They know a lot about it. And here in these remote areas of Alaska, they are the law. So it's very interesting. I'll be following these cases to see what actually happens. I'm going to post a link down below. If you go to the end of the Box Elder Judge link, you'll see the one that you can click on for the fire chief. I'll try to find the one on Alaska. It's been a few years, but it's really quite interesting to see how the wealthy and well-connected and what their punishment is versus the rest of us. Very rarely is it worse. This is ICAC Unpacked for Norman Michael Asian. Have a good day.